right, Professor, we're back for round two. The next subject I wanted to ask you about, should be obvious, just following the belts, is the blue belt, but I also wanted to talk about the purple belt at the same time, partly to save time, but I also think maybe they're kind of related. Mm-hmm. So, blue and purple belts, when did you, or do you remember getting your blue and purple belts? It's a long time ago now.
Yeah, look, it's a long time. I remember some things about it. I remember roughly the date. So I got my blue belt was at some point in 2000. I remember that because just shortly after I got my blue belt, I got a little cauliflower ear. And I had this trip scheduled to come to Australia for the first time to visit Australia, to spend 2 months here or so, and then I had to get my ear drained. As a blue belt already, I came to Australia to visit, spend 2 months here, and the Olympics were almost taking place here in Australia. And I told myself, look, this is an amazing country, man. One day I'm going to live here.
One day I'm going to the gym here. Wow.
So that was the blue belt around at some point in 2000. Purple belt, it was like 2003. I don't remember exactly the date in 2003. I remember for both occasions we used to have like a proper ceremony in the typical Brazilian style, so Brazilian barbecue. Have this big Brazilian barbecue. You never know if you're going to get your belt on that day or not, so it was a surprise. Some people will sit there for the whole barbecue expecting something. At the end they wouldn't get anything
the whole time.
And other people, the lucky ones, who get their belts. So that's how the graduation ceremonies would happen back then.
Did you cry when you got your belts?
I'm a very emotional person, as you know, right? I don't think I cried because I felt like crying with emotion, but I did not. I managed to hold on.
I came very close to the same belt.
Did you?
Okay, so super common thing I've heard from almost everyone I've ever seen get given their blue belt is they say, I don't feel like I'm ready for it. I don't feel like I deserve it. What do you think about that phenomenon? What do you think about that feeling?
Yes, I think that's, of course, completely normal, right? Someone awards you something and think, am I ready? Am I not ready? But I think once you get it, it transforms yourself somehow, right? I'm not saying that a belt is going to change who you are, but because you have that responsibility literally around your waist, you just work harder. So I probably felt like I didn't deserve, but on the other hand, I realized that made me push myself even harder, to make my professors proud. I think that's what I was always trying to do in jiu-jitsu. I want to make that guy proud. I want to make my parents proud as well. So that's that.
To kind of like justify your black belt's decision.
Yes.
Sure. So feeding off that kind of feeling, do you feel like, I know both times I've been given my new belts, I don't know what it is, I still don't know how to describe it, but you just feel like your jiu-jitsu is a little bit better straight away. Have you felt that same feeling?
Yes, that's for sure.
The belt superpowers?
Yeah, it does. It pushes you to your best, so somehow it's giving you superpowers. I think that's, you feel like that in every belt. I think it's the responsibility they put on you, and then you just embrace that, and you say, no, now I need to do even better against these people because I am a blue belt or I am a purple belt. So you push yourself more, and there's one thing, when people believe on you and they show that they believe on you, that pushes you harder. It's like you go into a competition, me telling you before the fight, say, Nick, man, I know you're going to beat that guy. There's no chance in the world that you're not going to beat him. It's very likely that you're going to go there and beat him because you believe in yourself, right?
For sure. Okay, what was my next question? Did you feel that again at purple belt as well?
Yes, definitely.
Or I suppose actually before that, did you feel you deserved your purple belt, like you earned your purple belt, or was it even more exaggerated because it's the next color belt, like whoa, like now I'm the purple?
Look, I think I worked really hard for these belts all the time. I think partially because I had the time to train and I started getting into competitions very, very early. So I would work super hard in terms of like putting my time at the gym and also achieving like good results in competition. So when the belt came, I actually, of course, I felt amazing and somehow was a bit unexpected, but I felt that I deserved it.
Okay. Cool. I'm going to jump back and forth between the two belts a little bit here because I think they're kind of related. But so we talked about in our last episode how white belt, for you especially, you felt it was kind of, you didn't worry about progression, it was more just surviving. When you got to blue, or maybe to purple, where people say, you know, your jiu-jitsu game starts to develop, is that when you started to approach training differently or your progression differently? Or did you ever make a conscious decision, or did it just start to happen? Or
yes, look, I think I started from blue belt on. I started, let's say, repeating the movements even more. So there was these few techniques that I started to get good at, and they're the same ones that I do nowadays anyways. But I started getting good at them, and then I said, no, okay, now is the time for these techniques to get super sharp. So I'm going to repeat them many times. I'm going to drill when I do my specific training or sparring against someone. I'm going to try to hit that technique every single time. So I think that's what happened in terms of, okay, now I need to develop a really good game on these few things that I already know how to do.
Did you, so at blue belts when you started playing De La Riva guard?
Yes, even as a white belt, yeah.
Okay.
Would be something slightly different than what I do now as a white belt, but let's say from blue belt on is like the same sweep. I had some recordings back in Brazil fights as a blue belt. The sweep was the same. So definitely sticking with the same game for a long period of time.
Okay. I wanted to ask as well, I know when I started at Bondi, there were not many coloured belts. By the time I left, there were a fair few. But now back at Carlton, there's not too many coloured belts. In the gyms you've trained at over the years, were there lots of coloured belts, not so many?
Yes, mostly there were quite a few like collar belts and a few black belts. So definitely we always had like a handful of black belts on the mat, and 10 purple belts. So there's quite a few.
Okay.
Just because people have been training for longer in Brazil as opposed to here they've been training for a shorter period of time.
You still would have seen, well, maybe you can tell me, that most people tend to quit somewhere around the blue. Or they leave jiu-jitsu somewhere around the blue. That's still true, you think?
Yeah,
true of your experience?
In my experience it is. I remember a lot of people who gave up on the blue belt, and I don't remember as many who gave up on purple belt or brown belt, right? Why does that happen? It's hard to tell, right? But the way I feel about it is like blue belt, you achieved something already, right? You already achieved something, your game progressed, but then what's next? For some people will be, I'll lose their interest because I already achieved that. I don't know what's beyond that. And the other thing is that in jiu-jitsu you're going to reach some plateaus, right? Yes. There'll be parts that are going to be stuck.
For sure.
And that's going to happen a lot at the blue belt, I believe, and then people just are not patient enough to wait for that time to pass by.
Okay. And why do you think that stops happening at purple? Just because maybe by then you've got more practice with dealing with those challenges, or?
I think if you wait until purple belt, jiu-jitsu start becoming part of you. That's the way I felt about it. It wasn't anymore a sport that I'll do. It was part of me. Right. So the bond was much stronger in the sense that maybe I'll get busy at work for a few weeks, but I'll always come back to training, right? Or have a little injury here or there, but the connection with jiu-jitsu is so strong that it's harder to break. And I think because you've been doing that for a long time already, maybe as a purple belt, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, some people are going to take to get the purple belt. So I think that,
It's interesting because purple belts, like that's the halfway mark to black. You'd kind of expect people maybe to get to halfway and go, I'm only halfway, and then they sign off. But it happens at blue the most.
Yes, it's interesting.
What do you think you would tell people before they get to blue, or they're at blue now, to like, I don't know, keep going, you know?
I think the best way is to always look back. Why did you start doing this?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Why did you start jiu-jitsu? And did it, sometimes the goal for the future is going to change, but if you come back to the reason why you started, you find the energy that you need to stick with it.
Mm-hmm.
Why did I start jiu-jitsu? It was because my friend came up with jiu-jitsu, but the reality wasn't that, right? The reality is probably, I wanted to feel stronger, physically and emotionally. And jiu-jitsu brought me that. So if I look back to it, it would be really hard to give up jiu-jitsu now, because look, I want to keep being stronger. So if I give up, I won't be strong anymore.
Yeah, sure. That goal hasn't changed. You just have to keep like reminding yourself.
That's it.
Of the goal. Okay.
That's what
good tip. So slightly different kind of topic now, still about the blue and purple belts. We've spoken a bit about how your game starts to develop around blue and purple. I forgot to ask, so I'll just ask it now. How do you think people should approach building a jiu-jitsu game? How do you identify what's good for you? There's some things that are really obvious, people with long legs are going to do well with spider guard. But I think there's also, it's more complicated than that. How do you think people should approach learning that whole new side of jiu-jitsu? You just started, you're just trying to figure out all the techniques, and now you have to go pick some that are going to be yours,
Yeah, it's a really hard one, isn't it? I believe the best way is like, you have to see what works for you, right? Maybe you start training there and then you feel, Ezekiel is something that is working for me, so you want to stick with it. As opposed to trying something completely different the next day, you should try that one over and over. And then once you build that one, it's already part of your muscle memory and your game, then you start building. I think people sometimes try to do too many things at the same time. It's good for you to know a lot of different things, even if it is to defend yourself against them.
Yeah.
But the reality is that your game is going to be a few things. So see what's working for you now and stick with it. Yes.
And seeing what works for you is just a process of like experimenting and also just taking the time to just see things over time, use different jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, so basically like experimenting, you're trying that new technique, or did it work? Or maybe it didn't work yet, but it's almost there. So you need to be persistent, right? So try to do in the specific training, the sparring, see, okay, this little thing is getting there, it almost worked. So don't decide to do something else. Stick with that one.
Okay. And then something kind of preempting a different episode I want to do, totally different subject. Well, not totally different, still jiu-jitsu. But when did you feel like jiu-jitsu philosophy started to make its way into, your life or your training? Because it's not like there's a book we give students. But Pedro back at Bondi would always talk about jiu-jitsu philosophy, and I'm like, man, where is it written? What are you talking about? But now I feel like I know a little bit about what he's talking about. But I can't describe where that comes from. What do you think? How's that getting into our heads?
Look, I think there are many things that are part of the jiu-jitsu philosophy, right? The one that I would like to discuss is the resilience, right? Jiu-jitsu makes us resilient. How did it kick off for me? It was basically at the very beginning of the jiu-jitsu training as a white belt. I'll go to the gym and then there's this massive guy on top of me, and back then people, maybe the no-gi class, then that was tough, right? A bit disgusting. No-gi class, people who wear speedos only, no rash guards. So we'd be training with that person super sweaty on top of you, massive person squashing on the mats. I'm 70 kilos, that guy is like 120 kilos.
Big hairy Brazilian dude.
Big hairy Brazilian dude. But then you do this a week, you do that 2 weeks. On the third week, you manage to escape from that guy's mount. And I said, man, I can't escape this guy's mount. Now, when I go back to school and I have like a tough test or exam, I don't care. I can deal with it.
Yeah.
And then later on, you pass through other challenges in life. You say, no, I'm ready for it because I've been passing through such tough moments at the gym that I can basically face anything.
Sure.
So that's how the jiu-jitsu philosophy started, playing its role on myself to resilience and to putting yourself in very tough situations on the mat and then being ready for situations outside the mats. I think that's the biggest benefit we can have.
Cool. We're running out of time, I think. I wanted to ask some questions about competition, but maybe we'll just save that for the episode on competitions and things. So if you could, just like the last episode, something to say to blue and or purple belts, little piece of advice or something that you think defines those belts that should be their kind of focus for students about to get to, maybe, or who are at that kind of level?
I think there's a time for you to really try to become technical in jiu-jitsu, to be patient with the plateaus that you're going to reach, because you're going to find those, and to every single time when you lose a little bit of motivation, try to come back to the reason why you started jiu-jitsu, because that's going to keep you going. That's the reason why you started. That's the reason why you should keep doing that, because it's something that is good for you. It's going to make you stronger.
Yeah. Cool. Perfect. Thank you once more. We'll come back again for the next episode. The big ones, the brown and the black belt.
Pleasure.
Thank you very much, Professor.
Lovely. Thank you, Nick. Us.